Where's my phone?
The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it's a Wednesday, and we didn't have a show on Monday because of the holiday.
I'm getting tired of this. No shows.
Happy President's Day. I mean, that's 3 shows in the last 2 weeks. It's like, you know, wet
it's like
weather.
A whole week of shows.
Looks like it looks like a conspiracy to keep us off the air.
I know.
Well, I guess we got a lot to talk about. We had a city council committee meeting yesterday that
and a
turned into
TIF board meeting. Don't forget the TIF board.
And a TIF board, yeah, that's correct, yeah, which is really important. And we had, you know, it turned out to be quite a show, I guess.
You know, this is what makes for good television. You know, you and I have talked about this, I don't know how many times, about creating a reality show called The Riv. And we don't have to pay the actors. This is great.
And boy, are they actors, Academy Award caliber.
But let's start with the TIF board, okay? It passed unanimously, like this was a surprise to anybody. 2 TIFs, okay? One for the CEA project, which is the mall, the other for Market Basket. Now, Ken Fiola clearly stated, and so did the mayor, if we don't get the TIF, they don't come here. The deal is gone. Now, didn't we hear the same thing from Amazon? Now, they're saying that there's going to be 300 new jobs at Market Basket. And I love Market Basket. I think Market Basket is a wonderful, wonderful place to work. You know, the employees are all very professional. They're dressed professionally. You know, white shirts, black ties, jackets. They all look very good. But let's be realistic. There's going to be 75 full-time jobs, 325 part-time jobs. And they're touting on the TIF board, oh, but they're going to pay benefits and pensions, etc. You know what? They don't pay benefits, they don't pay pensions to 325 people because they're part-timers. Part-timers don't get that. They just don't get it. And they're giving them, if I'm correcting this, a $16 million TIF, okay? 100% for the first 5 years. And that's only if they use existing buildings. Now, if they don't use the existing buildings and they demolish them, they only got to pay 50% of the taxes on the land. So, and this money, this TIF has nothing to do with the money the state's going to give them to come here. Nor does it have anything to do with the fact that the city council got that area designated as an abandoned property. Okay, and so they get another 10% reduction in their taxes to come to Fall River. You know what? I'm all for Fall River. I'm all for bringing business to Fall River. But to quote Pamela Liberté LeBeau, we can't bring them here unless we give away the house.
Yeah,
okay?
well,
we can't bring them here unless we give them all the money.
That's tragic to have a city councilor say that. Let's reaffirm what an absolute waste Fall River is. And you have to give them everything for free.
Right.
So they have no operating costs. And so this is like Bangladesh. We're gonna, you know, come to Bangladesh and, you know, you have no operating costs. Well, the fact is, look, there is you know, all we ever do is TIFs. Remember, Market Basket, they said it was looking at Rhode Island.
Yeah.
So apparently Rhode Island said, look, you either take what we give you or take or beat it. So Fall River, they're coming to Fall River because they're operating for free. So let's look at this thing. Let's look at this thing from a realistic perspective, not our Office of Economic Disaster and our city council, the shills and TIF board, the shills for everything, who always say the same mantra. Jobs, it's bringing jobs, it's bringing jobs, it's bringing jobs. Well, they don't pay any taxes, period. So they're contributing nothing to the city's tax base for years. And are they really, is this really a positive? As you said, you know, from all reports I've gotten, and I've never been to a Market Basket, I'll be perfectly frank, I'm not gonna drive to New Bedford just to go shopping, because I don't, I don't.
You don't cook at home.
I don't cook at all, so, but the fact is, I'm not gonna drive to New Bedford, but from all intents and purposes, I know people in the Taunton area and in the New Bedford area who shop at Market Basket, and I know you do, CJ, we've had a conversation. They're talking about 325 jobs and part-time jobs, and they talk about these huge wages. Well, number one, it's not true. If you look at Stop and Shop, I know somebody who's doing a part-time work in a position that the full-timer is making $12 an hour more than they are. They're making over 20, and they're making around 10. And if you look at that, that's almost $100 a week. So that's, I mean, you look at that, $100 a day, I'm sorry, it's like, you look at an 8-hour day, it's $96. You look at that for a week, it's $500 a week more. That's $2,000 a month, $24,000 a year, which is almost the household income in the city of Fall River. And let's look at another factor. We're gonna give this place everything for free. They're gonna come in, and let's look at this objectively. This is a business. And they're gonna underprice Stop and Shop, which is a stone's throw away from where they're gonna open. That Stop and Shop is already, kind of on the border of closing now. Shaw's is already closed. So let's look at this. If at some point in time, and by the way, when it does happen, and I'm not saying if, I'm saying when it does happen, we're gonna remind you, we're gonna take a camera down to the Stop and Shop and take a picture of the derelict building and remind our city council and remind our TIF board that we're gonna lose over 300 jobs at the Stop and Shop in the South End. So, as far as jobs are concerned, we've gained absolutely nothing. And now we lose a market that actually pays taxes and replace it with a market that doesn't pay taxes. So guess what? At some point in time, like most of these TIFs end up, they have a negative impact on our economy, not a positive impact.
I think that's the trickle-down theory everybody likes to talk about.
Yeah, they love to talk about it, and how many businesses have left at the end of the TIFs. And the other thing is, we will never, ever, no matter how much we ask, get them to actually tell us how many Fall River people are employed. Because number one, the $75, $20 an hour plus jobs in supervisory positions are not gonna come from Fall River. They're gonna come from within the company. Supervisors are already trained to run a store, and they're gonna come from the New Bedford stores and the Taunton stores or wherever. They're not gonna come from Fall River. So the high-paying jobs aren't gonna come from Fall River. Then we get the mantra, well, we need any kind of job. Well, let's see how many Fall River people actually get those jobs. Let's see how many people from Tiverton, Somerset, Swansea, Westport, and Fall River. Let's see, after all the money that we've lost in taxes, and how many other businesses we've driven out of business, let's look at this let's look at the whole forest, not just the tree. See, that's their con job. That's their propaganda. They want to fixate. They start regurgitating these numbers over and over again. 325 jobs, 325 jobs, 325 jobs, $20 an hour, $20 an hour, $20 an hour. And what do? They get people to completely not look at the whole picture. There's another market there.
Right. But
There's another market, a tax-paying market, that employs approximately the same number. And when you drive that out of business, we've completely, we've lost, because we've lost the same amount of jobs, maybe more, because they probably have more Fall River people working in that market than Market Basket will hire, because the fact is, that market's been there forever. It's been there for years.
And Chip, the thing though that we really need to look at, and we have to be very honest about, is the fact that we never see, because the Office of Economic Destruction and Propaganda, and that's got to be their new name, has a good way of hiding their failures, because for 20 plus years, 30 years, it's been all failures. And I got to correct the quote. Pamela Liberté LeBeau said in response to a question posed to her by Barry Richards do we have to do this? And she said, in Fall River, we have to do this. Basically, it's the same thing, but it's not the quote. That's the quote. So, I mean, I don't want to misquote her. Not that I care how she feels about it, because basically what she says is, this is a cesspool. How are we supposed to get anybody here? And when you look at this TIF, the other thing that they touted on both TIFs, that it's going to be 200 construction jobs. What part of 200 construction jobs don't you fathom? Yes, it's construction jobs. Number one, they're temporary. Number two, Market Basket already has its company that they use to build their structures because they have their floor plan. It's just like Amazon. Amazon already has its company. All those construction jobs, not one from Fall River. Not one.
Yeah, former city council Dan Rigo was complaining about that's going to be the same thing.
Exactly.
And as you said, but that's the way they convince people. They throw
Right.
these numbers around, and they're absolutely. And as I said, look, and then let's.
And this is a 15-year TIF. 15
Oh, yeah.
years, 100% in the first 5 on both parties. The TIFs total $41 million. $41 million.
Yeah, well, we go down to the CEA's, and I'm going to make the quote. It's in quotation marks in this article. A dramatic central plaza.
Yeah.
Unquote. They can turn a phrase. I have to give the Office of Economic Disaster credit. They can turn a phrase. They have names that sound like spy cells and
Project Diamond.
Project Diamond, and now we have a dramatic central plaza and new tenants to complete retail shops, restaurants, and services.
All which must be kept hidden.
And a 12-screen modern cinema. Well, guess what? We've already had one cinema go out of business. How many restaurants have survived in Fall River outside of pizza joints, Chinese restaurants? But how many restaurants have failed in Fall River? How many restaurants? Virtually all. If you look at how many restaurants have opened and then caved, I mean, we had Italian restaurants. We had a couple of steakhouses that opened up. Nothing survives because people don't have any money. Again, give them money, and then, this is going to be just like the Harbor Mall is now. In 10 years, it'll be empty and derelict and a burden on the taxpayers again. And what have we gained? And what have we gained from this? Not a penny's worth of taxes, not a dime's worth of anything, because most of the people that get employed here, and in the construction phase, it'll basically be zero, but most of the people that get employed here will not be from Fall River. And I defy you, Office of Economic Destruction, to give me numbers to disprove that the majority of jobs in these TIF, the TIFs that you've given out are from Fall River. I defy you to give me those statistics because I know you're lying.
And it's really funny because the boy emperor, Mayor Jazel F. Correa II, not the first, the second, came out and said, "This is exciting."
The two.
It's like dealing with children. Because the thing that people of Fall River don't understand, because they're all looking at the me. Well, you know what? If you're a me that doesn't pay taxes because you don't own property, I'm looking at the me because I pay property taxes.
When are they going to
Somebody's
give
got
the
to pay for this.
Yeah, when are they going to give the residents a TIF?
Right.
Why don't we get a TIF once in a while? They're going to jack up your taxes to the maximum of 2.5. They're going to talk about an override, but they're giving away the store. They won't tax nonprofits. They won't tax anybody but you and me.
And
that's the only people they know how to tax.
And here's the kicker, okay? And for you renters out there, and I'm not saying renters are a bad thing, but for you renters out there, understand something. I'm a property owner. I do rent apartments. And when my taxes go up, I have to recoup that money somewhere. My tenants will tell you I've been very good about not raising my rents. But now with an increase in water fees, an increase in sanitation fees, an increase of bag fees, an increase in taxes, I can no longer afford to carry that burden on my back. So I have two options. Either raise my rent to $1,200 a month for a 3-bedroom apartment, which is the going rate, by the way, people in Fall River, because people scream when they say, it's $600 a month or $650 a month for 1 bedroom. Guess what? That's because Section 8 is driving the rents up. So understand, when the rents go up to outrageous rates, you allowed your elected officials to give away $41 million because you could potentially get a 10-hour a week or a 15-hour-a-week job paying $12 an hour. And
If you're lucky.
If you're
12,
lucky.
12 if you're lucky.
If you're lucky. And granted, you may need that because you need whatever you can get for work. But at what cost? At what cost? They believe that all these people in Fall River are going to get jobs. Number one, if you have any criminal background whatsoever, you're not getting a job at any of these places. If you use opiates, if you use drugs, even medicinally, you're probably not going to get a job at these places. And the number of cinemas has changed. I don't know how many times. It used to be 8. Now it's 12. When it's going to go to 6. So it's jumping all over the place. And I've already spoken to local businesses. Number one, look at Dollar Tree. They're moving out of the mall because there's no traffic there. Staples is actually looking at potentially moving from that location if they stay in the city at all, which means the nearest Staples will be in Seekonk or in Fairhaven. And I told the people that from Staples, their corporate office, when they were down yesterday, see that, Mr. Fiola? I'm doing your job. I said, you should contact the city and see if you can get a TIF. There's plenty of space up and down this roadway. I'd hate to see you leave Fall River. But then again, you know, Kenny doesn't want that. Staples is already here. Let's move on to the floor show.
Yes.
You know, I wish they had aired the after-meeting conversations because I think those might have been better. But let's get to something real quick. They were bringing up creating new positions for DCM. And, you know, we always give kudos where kudos are due and whatnot. And I got to say, Richard Cabaceres and I do not see eye to eye on 99% of the items. But yesterday, he was sticking it to her in the worst way. And Kathy Ann had no answers. Because guess what, people? The numbers don't jive. The numbers aren't making any sense. And if the numbers aren't making any sense to a gentleman who works in finance, besides the fact that he used to be a firefighter, he works in finance. Guess what? When the numbers don't jive, there's a problem. And what I think is absolutely abhorrent is every member of that ordinance subcommittee, Cliff Ponte, Pamela Liberté LeBeau, Linda Pereira, Joe Camara, Steve Long, those 5 voted for this, except for Linda, who voted present, which shows you don't have a backbone, Linda. You have no constitution whatsoever. You should have said no.
Present.
If that's what you're going to say, you say no. You don't say present.
Well, are you really present if you don't make a vote?
Yeah, no,
It's like if a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound?
Yeah.
If somebody shows up at a council meeting and doesn't vote, are they really there?
Exactly.
I don't even know if you can vote present.
Right. And the kicker of all of this is the fact that the Herald News got a statement from the mayor in the Herald News Now section that says, if I don't get this ordinance, I will fire Kenny Pacheco. That is extortion.
That actually, the mayor actually, no, I know there was an allegation made that statement was made
Kathy Ann Viveris keeps saying she doesn't know.
at a meeting, but he actually made that statement to the Herald News?
I gave you a printout of statements, okay, throughout this city council meeting. And during these statements, there is a conversation about how the people felt about this whole situation. And there is a statement in there that comes from Joe Good that says the mayor confirmed in his interview with Herald News Now, HN Now, okay, that Ken Pacheco's position will be terminated.
Well, I still can't find it here.
Yeah, I'm going over it real quick.
I may not have that page.
Yep.
But look, if it was made,
It's
and
right. It's right at the top. It's right underneath. Cabaceres is arguing numbers. Pereira understands Pacheco would be fired if not passed. Kathy Ann Viveris said not aware in an interview with the mayor with Herald News Now. Answer was yes. So Ken Pacheco will be terminated if they don't get this.
Okay, well, I mean, look, that is absolutely, whether it's, I mean, look, that's extortion, it's intimidation, and it's not the way, a city is supposed to run. The reality is that Kenny Pacheco, whether you agree with some of the political stances he's taken and some of the, he fell on his sword a few times, didn't want to name names, that's beside the point. Everybody I know a lot of people from DPW, and I know a lot of people throughout the city that have dealt with Kenny Pacheco. He's always available. He's very committed. Most of the people who work for him say he's a decent boss to work for. He takes care of his men, tries to protect his men, does what he has to do. From all intents and purposes, I've talked to a lot of people in this community. I very, very rarely ever heard anybody say anything except Ken's always done a good job. He's very dedicated to that position. He puts a lot of time in. He does a lot of things. And to put his job on a line and to use a human being for leverage is just reprehensible. And besides, I think, it may even be illegal. The fact is that, look, this whole thing is a sham. I believe, CJ, you had a conversation with one of the mayor's staff who basically said there are no savings going to be realized this year.
Yes, I confronted Chris Reno, I call him Paranoia, with the savings, and I said, prove them to me. I said, did you take into consideration the fact that we pay 100% of unemployment? And I went through the whole list of things, and he says, well, you're right. In reality, we're not going to have any savings this year. Well, he says, you won't see those savings till next year. Well, and then when Kathy Ann was called out about that last night, because they said, you have 10 positions which have been unfilled, and now they're filled. Oh, no, we haven't said we're filling them. We might fill them, which means we're going to fill them. So where's the savings going to come in? And the numbers from the savings keeps changing. And again, we're used to that with Kathy Ann and
what is the bottom line? The city's lying again. They're misrepresenting it. They're paying someone whose job isn't even in ordinance yet, and it's not in the budget, so where are they getting the money to pay for them? It's illegal. You can't pay somebody because the guy can't be on a payroll unless his money is budgeted and the job exists. And they haven't even created the job. But look, let's face this whole real.
I went looking this morning. That job is not posted because they can't post it until it's created in ordinance.
Yeah, which is another issue. And the fact is that, listen, this whole reorganization is BS because
it's smoke and mirrors.
Because, people, if you look at private industry where they actually have to account for their money, and they can't just tax their customers more like they do to us when they screw up and never do anything right. When a business begins to get in trouble and they downsize, they actually downsize. See, in the city of Fall River, they downsized by eliminating 3 middle-level chiefs, little chiefs, and then pay 1 big chief. That's not the way you do it. They split departments. Now they're creating 2 separate departments. That's just the opposite of what they do in private industry. What they do in private industry is consolidate. They do more with less. Yep. They expand duties. They eliminate redundancies. They get rid of jobs and then put their money where it's needed, like in public safety. This is the problem. This reorganization is nothing more than 3-card Willie with the fast shuffling money so he can give everybody he knows a job. That's the reality. The reality is, what is the end result of this stuff? We got a new department with a new department head that's going to be getting around 90 grand or whatever.
98.
98. Oh, it's like $9.99.
Yep.
That's a retail tool psychologically. You're not putting $10. You don't have that extra number. You don't have that. So that's the oldest con in the world.
Yes.
Let's pay him $98,000, and nobody realizes he's making almost 6 figures. We won't put the 6 figures there, but we'll give him 98, and then we'll give him a stipend to bring him over 100,000.
Of course.
But this is the whole problem. This is all. This is Fall River doing what Fall River always does, which is load manure on every item, and then our city council spends 3 hours talking, and then they vote for the thing. And it's like, really? Really? This is not what we want. This is not what the people want. We wanted change. We don't want that kind of change. This is just, like I said, 3-card Willie in the fast shuffle. You know, oh, I'll tell you I eliminated 3 jobs, but the budget's only going to go down a little bit because I'm going to give most of that money to one of my friends. And I'm not going to do more with less. I'm going to do less with more. So we're going to give a guy less duties than Kenny Pacheco had and pay him almost as much. And then we're going to give Kenny half the duties he used to have and pay him $98,000. Tell me how that makes sense. Somebody please explain to me how that makes any sense.
Well, you know, Chip, the funny thing is that that position, when it was announced by the boy Emperor, was that Ken Pacheco will be handling all the city buildings. And we have a new school building coming in, a potential for the new high school, and da-da-da-da. And he's going to handle these things because he has experience. He's already handled 4 or 5 buildings, et cetera, et cetera. Yet, when asked yesterday during the ordinance committee meeting if he'll be handling schools, that is unknown at this time.
Listen, they're going to do what they've always done. They hire a clerk of the works.
Yep.
They hire somebody to do it, and he will get paid to listen to what this guy reports to him. And look, that's absolute baloney. The bottom line is they're going to justify creating more money. So now instead of paying Kenny, what was the salary before?
113.
$113,000. So he takes a $15,000 pay cut and gets half the duty. So that's pretty good. I mean, if somebody told you, I'm giving you, I'm still going to pay you almost 6 figures, and I'm going to give you half the amount of work you used to have, but I'm going to give somebody else almost 6 figures to do half the work. And you call that a reorganization. You call that something that's beneficial to the citizens of Fall River. That's an absolute lie. It is ridiculous. It is like picking up former politicians' tires and not charging them.
You know, it's very interesting when you see this, because buildings and grounds, that's the new department, currently has very little money in the current DCM budget. So that money is going to transfer over to that budget. Well, even if he has a new department to handle all of this, he's got no money.
And by the way, just as an interjection here, somebody can look at the school department to see if the building and grounds guy for the school department, the job still exists, because I remember Bob Shaker. I remember Mr. Shaker was in charge of buildings and grounds for the school department. Mm-hmm. They had their own guy getting paid to do that.
Right, and that's why we say that.
Let's see. Again, we have another redundancy. and this is what I'm saying. It's like any similarity between actual downsizing and reorganization for the good of the people is purely coincidental. Anybody that believes that they're trying to save money rather than trying to figure out where they can get money to pay their friends needs to drink the same Kool-Aid. What they should do, and it might be a great business for Fall River, let's see what they're drinking in City Hall, and let's bottle it and sell it.
You can already, because they don't drink city water. They get it delivered by Poland Spring and all of that.
Because Fall River is now learning, rather than doing more with less, we're doing less with more.
Exactly. So it's always fun, it's always excitement, and guess what?
Stay
it's
angry.
Fall River. Hey people, stay angry please, because you know what? Somebody's got to.
And please pay attention.
Have a great day. We'll see you Friday.